Hey guys, it's Livy, aka Livy the Developer, and we are back for another much requested video. So for all of you newbies, my name is Olivia. I graduated from the Flatiron Coding Bootcamp in 2019, and I was the first person in my cohort to get a job. I got a job exactly 1 week before graduation. And just for reference and for context, when it came to like the spectrum of how well I did in the program, the spectrum of like the super smart genius people to like the people that really struggled, I was probably like number 3 towards the bottom. Graduated, but definitely was a struggle for me. You guys know I keep it real on this channel, but I was the first one to get a job. So here we are to talk about the job interview process. If you guys don't know, I do have a video on how I got that job so quickly. So definitely check out that video. But today we're going to talk about the actual job interview process because it was a 3-hour long video. I also want to say before we get into this, I have links down below. I have a link where you can book me for a tutoring session about programming, or if you're looking for a solution to a specific coding problem, you can book me and I will solve that solution for you and show you how I solve that problem. I also have a link for questions because now I'm starting to get a ton of questions. So it's just a very simple form. You can submit your question there and I will answer it in my next Q&A video. And I also have a link for my tarot card readings. Yes, I read tarot cards. And I have really awesome reviews on that. So I'm this weird mix of like a software engineer, mom, and tarot card reader. So I'm coming at you guys from my Zen den. Speaking of, I still haven't done a house tour, but I felt like we needed some Zen in our lives right now. So why not come at you guys from here? So I don't want to lollygag. Let's get started. So I got called for an interview and I was really freaking excited. The company that I work for now is a very large company, very well-known company around the world. And so I was just really excited, but also freaking out because I absolutely was not expecting to get an interview so fast. I was literally in the middle of creating my final project, wrapping up with school, with tests and things like that. And actually I had finished my final test, but I was getting prepared for our science fair where we present our final project. So I was deep in the midst of building out the largest project I'd ever built out. And the person who got me the job told me, hey, you need to fill out your resume right now and you need to get it over to them right now. So I literally had 1 day to create my technical resume, which is a completely different type of resume. It's very thorough, in depth. It's not like I could use an old resume I had used in the past. I had to use a brand spanking new resume and update. It was just so much craziness between like trying to finish my project and trying to do that. It was a lot, but I got it over. The very next day, I believe, they called me and said, hey, we'd like to schedule for an interview in a couple days. So I'm like, what the heck? Again, I have so much going on. Mind you, I still had a newborn baby at home. And here I am being scheduled for my first technical interview. At the Flatiron School, they prepare you for these interviews by doing like mock interviews and giving you mock technical interviews and things like that, mock questions that you'll have, but that's after you graduate. So I did not have any practice, any preparation for any of this. I wasn't able to use those resources that they give you after the program for you to succeed in the job market or succeed in finding a job. I didn't have any of that. So I am scrambling, like Google, what are technical questions that they ask in an interview, doing mock interviews with my parents, like just really trying to like Google as much as I possibly could so I could come to the table with my A game. And so I Googled, top programming questions for junior software engineers. I ran through that night and day. Like I was just looking at all those questions, making sure I knew the answers, just pounding it into my brain. And then I had mock interview questions and I just came up with answers for those, did mock interviews with my parents. I talked to my instructor at the Flatiron School and asked him if he could just run through a mock interview with me. And so that was really awesome. He scheduled that with me for the next day. And so he just acted like he was the interviewer and just asked me questions. And because, you know, you don't just do a regular interview, you're actually doing a whiteboarding exercise, a technical interview. So I get all prepared, I get my interview outfit, it was really great, and then, you know, I go to school that day, and, you know, everyone's like wishing me good luck and all these different things, and then finally I had to shoot out for the interview. So I go into the interview, I have my nice suit on, I have my Padfolio, and I walk into like the coolest laboratory, like Dexter's laboratory type of thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I am here. So I'm walking down the long hallway and I'm like, oh, I'm like, you know, I'm going through security and I'm like, what is life? Like, it's like one of those euphoric moments where it's like, it was really out of body. Like, am I really walking into this high-tech laboratory to interview for an engineering position? Like, is this my life right now? Because just last year I was like pregnant and single. I just left my fiance and I'm like, how the heck, like, how is this my life in 1 year? And so it was just like, so then I walk in and they sit me down and I talk to HR and they're like, okay, they're gonna come out, they're gonna come get you. So I'm like, you know, what's really funny is actually I arrived to my interview early and I just sat in my car. I wanted to make sure I was totally on time. So I just sat in my car and I remember just like, I was like, oh, let me do a meditation. So I found a meditation for job interviews. And I listened to that and that calmed my mind and got me all like just, you know, relaxed and like feeling empowered. And then I'm like, wait, let me put lotion on. So I dig in my bag and I squirt some stuff in my hand and I go like this and I'm like, shoot, this is my baby's soap. And so here I am, like I have a handful of baby soap, not lotion. So then I'm like, oh crap, I'm like wiping my hands off. And then I'm like, oh shit, I'm starting to leak because I was still breastfeeding. So I'm like, I'm starting to leak. So I'm like, it was just so much going on, y'all. So anyway, we go into the room and I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? Beforehand, I did my power poses, you know, Superman, I forgot what they are, but like I did power poses. I'm like, I can do this. I am smart. They deserved, you know, they would be lucky to have me as an employee. And I knew that one of my strengths, what I was told, because I worked in my career, they give you a career person like a couple weeks before you graduate. So my career person had told me like, you know, my personality is really what sets me apart from most engineers. So like, let that shine. And so, you know, here comes a guy, he walks in and I'm like, hi, you know, my name is Olivia. You know, I'm really excited. I was so confident. I really just tried to be natural. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone, but you know, I just really tried to be relaxed and calm. And then, you know, he introduces himself and this was the brain teaser. Yeah, that was the first part, the brain teaser part. So he gave me 2 different brain teaser questions that were like, I can't remember them exactly, but it was like, if you have a bucket of water and you can only fill the bucket of water with like a cup, but the cup is this and that is that, how would you fill that cup? Like, and I am not a brain teaser kind of person. It's funny because like there's this guy in my cohort that's so freaking smart, like genius level. And I remember after my interview, I asked him the question. He was like, oh yeah, here's the answer. And so I was like, okay, can I use the whiteboard? So I went on the whiteboard and I just wrote down every single option. Guys, if there's one tip I can give y'all in this freaking video, listen up, like pay attention right now. Here's the piece of advice that you need to know with any interview, any technical interview. Never stop talking. So I looked at that problem and I'm like, I have no idea what the answer is. Instead of just standing there and be like, I just talked, I kept talking. I'm like, okay, just talk about what you're thinking. So I'm like, okay, I know you establish that you understand the problem first. So then I'm like, okay, so I know here's the problem. Let me reiterate the problem to you. So it's this and this and this and this and this. Cool, great. Thank you for confirming that. So what initially comes to my head is I would take the cup and I would blah, 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 blah. And then I said, okay, well, let me try that out. Okay, that didn't work. Now, what would I try next? Now, I would try this next. I would blah, 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 blah. And then, okay, let me try that. Okay, that didn't work. Now, here's my next option. Given that those two didn't work, I think that I can now try this. And I went on and on and on. And I eventually did not solve the problem. I got really close to solving the problem, but I didn't. But here's the ringer. Here's why I won that round. It's because he wanted to see how I thought. He actually didn't care about the actual answer. He wanted to see how I problem solved. And because I talked throughout the entire process, he could actually hear how I solved problems. That's the biggest thing that you can do for yourself. Just keep talking. If you stand there and just stare, they're not going to know that you have a million different wonderful options going on in your head. So eventually, he gave me little hints. I still didn't get to the bottom of it, but he eventually told me the answer and he was like, but you did a great job. I had another brain teaser after that. I forget what that one was. It was like a scale. If a scale is broken, but the this and the that and the blah. So that was that round. I left feeling so I met with 3 different people. I met with a software engineer, a senior software engineer. I met with a senior software engineer, principal software engineer, and the director of technology. And so that was the very first one. Kind of warmed me up. I left feeling really confident after that. Even though I hadn't got the answers, I was really confident that I let my personality shine through. I was really confident that I let my thought process really shine. And so he knew at the end of the day, like, I understood the problem and I knew how to strategize to get to the answer. And then here comes round 2. Round 2 was the actual nitty-gritty technical part where they wanted to make sure that I understood how to code. And it was actually not as difficult as I thought it would be. I was actually asked to build out a specific JavaScript React component. So I built out the component. I was asked that if I forget the specific question, but it basically, like, if I wanted to figure out how to find how many pebbles are in a bag by something like that, what's an algorithm that I would come up for that. So basically I was asked to solve a problem with a basic function, and I just had to write out the function. I mean, I didn't have to type up anything. It was strictly whiteboarding. Syntax didn't have to be correct. It was just, simply write out what that was. And and then after that, I was asked more of a conceptual design question. If the scientists need a web app that does this, how would you design that, like, as far as a UI perspective? And so that portion was over. I did very well on that piece. Building out a component is fairly easy. Building out a very simple algorithm using a JavaScript function, pretty easy. I didn't feel like super duper out of place. He asked me some very simple, like, life cycle questions and things like that, and I was able to answer those questions. I left that round feeling fairly comfortable. And after that point, I knew that, okay, like, we're getting close to the end. I think I've done fairly well at this point. I will note that I know that other people in my cohort have said that portion of their interview it's been a little bit harder, where they're actually asked to build out, like, actual programs and things like that. So I just want to note that if you look up just different technical interview questions, you'll find, like, practice algorithms that they ask you to build out. So then after that, I met with the director of technology, which was, like, super chill. Like, he basically came in, kicked his feet up, and was like, so what's up? Like, you think you'd be good for this job? Like, he was super casual, super chill. Like, yeah, we're pretty laid back here, whatever. So that was more so with the cultural fit of the interview. So we had the brain teaser portion to figure out how I problem solved in my head. And then we had the technical portion to make sure I actually knew how to code. And then we had the cultural part where they tried to figure out if I was a good cultural fit for the company. And that was my interview. A couple days later, I got the job offer and my mouth dry. It was funny. I was literally in the middle, I was in the mother's room at school and I was pumping milk, and I got the phone call, and when they gave me my job offer, my mouth dropped to the floor because I'm like, I can't believe I'm gonna be making this much money right now. This completely changes my life, and I am so freaking grateful. When I started on day one, from like day one to like month 6, it was hard. It was difficult. I questioned myself. I questioned my life. I questioned why I got into this industry. But I feel like the Flatiron School prepared me to grow. It didn't necessarily prepare me to like build out the apps that they needed me to build out, but it prepared me to learn how to do that. It gave me the basic principles and the basic knowledge that I needed. And then from there, it was just all about using that as a tool to understand how to learn these things on the spot. And so at month 13 now, I think I'm doing fairly well. I know I'm doing fairly well. I get a task and I can pretty seamlessly get it done. I can build out different apps and functions, and it's I'm not gonna say it's easy, but I don't struggle as much as I did. So I think that's it for that video, guys. Definitely shoot your questions over in that link that I have down below, and thank y'all for tuning in. Subscribe. Bye.